How's it going, Yankees fans? Welcome to the Fireside Yankees post-game recap show. And today, Yankees took on the Oakland Athletics. Comeback victory, hell of a win. Just it seems like this Yankee team, I keep using the word resiliency in every single podcast, and they continue to showcase what resiliency really means. Down 5-1, Jordan Montgomery having a bad start. The offense had to pick up the slack, and they really did. They did a great job. Seventh inning was electric. We're going to kind of break down how this game flowed, how it went. Some issues that I do have in mind, and some things I do want to discuss about this Yankee team and kind of where they're headed. But Ryan, before we do, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm having a great time, man. I mean, look, yes, Jordan Montgomery got roughed up, but I mean, ultimately, the dude goes out and gives you what 6 2/3, I believe. What he does is, and what this Yankee rotation has done over this stretch is they'll struggle. They will struggle, but what they won't do is they won't get knocked out in the second or third inning. They won't let this bullpen get left out to dry. They won't let the bullpen do that. They will not let this team get knocked out of a baseball game. They refuse to let the Yankees get knocked out of a baseball game, even when they're struggling. And I think that takes a different level of just. And I hate to sound kind of cringy here, but it's you have to have that dog in you, man. Like as Garrett Cole said, this team just has it in them. You look at those at bats in the seventh inning; they took full advantage of Sean Murphy having a rare defensive down. Like he had a bad defensive inning, and he's a very good defensive catcher. Like that's his calling card. He's a great defender, and the Yankees took advantage of him. Josh Donaldson double, Jose Trevino double, Marwin Gonzalez a double and a single today. That single to drive in Trevino. I mean, Marwin is a league average hitter now with a 100 WRC plus, which is it's like OPS plus, but it doesn't use OPS and instead uses weighted on base average. They're very similar stats. Doesn't really matter which one you use, whichever one you're more comfortable with. But he's a league average hitter right now, playing a really good shortstop, really versatile player. You look at who would be playing in that situation if our starting shortstop's down last year. That's Tyler Wade. No disrespect to Tyler Wade, but he's not a league average hitter. He is way worse than that. This team is just resilient, right? Rizzo gets hit and he comes out of the game. They can do that because Carpenter can give you a very competitive at bat and play a solid first base. And, we'll obviously wait and see with Rizzo. I don't think he's too horribly hurt. If he was, I don't think he would have stayed in the game. I don't think he would have ran there. I think they would have pulled him almost immediately, especially since he's not fast. It's not like he's losing anything pace running wise with him. But you know what, man? It's resiliency, as you mentioned. This team fights. Albert Abreu coming out the bullpen. It was really just poetic to see him, strike out a batter at the seventh. Jose Trevino gets a 2-run double, and then he goes and throws 2 more dominant innings, only walking one guy, going heavy sinker and slider, and just carving up that Oakland lineup. He was blowing fastballs by dudes. They were swinging over the top of his slider. He looks great. The Yankees just overall a very impressive team win. I get it. It's Oakland. But you know what? This is a team you should beat. And instead of rolling over and dying like last year's team would, they show up a little, they come out a little slow and then kick into gear and beat the crap out of a team that isn't very good.
Yeah, I mean, look, they just came off a grueling 4-game stretch against the Houston Astros. That was a tough series in the heat in the Bronx, not an easy series to get through. And they bounced back and, they started off slow, like you mentioned, but they picked up the pace. They really helped out Montgomery. And like you said, honestly, it's a pretty positive perspective, the sense that Jordan Montgomery, struggled, but he remained in the game. And like I saw them in about the third inning calling to the bullpen, and he was like, no, I'm good. And he stayed in the game, worked it out, and went through the, couple innings there and really, got the bullpen into the seventh inning almost. And I think that was a pretty good job by him. Just forgetting about the batted balls and the hits and the home runs and whatever it might be. That home run, by the way, wasn't a home run. It bounced off like the legit top of the wall. I don't think I've ever seen a hit come as close to that to being a home run. That was absolutely absurd. But the Yankees got lucky there. Obviously, like you mentioned, Sean Murphy, those 2 catcher interferences, that was the turning point in the game. Absolutely, in my opinion. That seventh inning, when he walks, when a batter gets not even walked, catch interference, Stanton gets in there. I believe it was Stanton that was walked in. Let me see here. It was DJ LeMahieu, home on an error. So that's pretty big. Those 2 catcher interferences were huge. Like you mentioned, good defensive catcher. That usually doesn't happen. The Yankees got a little lucky on that one. Then Josh Donaldson finally came in clutch. He's been really struggling lately at the plate. So that double for him, really nice little motivational boost. Trevino has been a stud all year long. Came in clutch once again. And Marwin Gonzalez, man, he's been hitting. He's been doing pretty well. I think there's a conversation legitimately to have that shortstop should be a platoon right now between IKF and Marwin Gonzalez. What are your thoughts on that?
So if you look at them defensively, right, statistically speaking, Marwin's the better defensive shortstop. A defensive run saved and outs above average. It sounds shocking, right? Because you're like, we acquired the guy to play defense, the guy being IKF. And, I don't want to harp on the guy because he struggled, and I know he wanted to succeed here, but I can't play a guy who's worse than the other guy, right? Like, I feel like that's unfair to Marwin. What does Marwin, like, I'm not saying Marwin is a, world beater, but, he's not slightly better. He's a lot better offensively, and he's not slightly better defensively. He looks like he's a lot better defensively out there. I'm not saying Marwin is the long-term solution at shortstop in terms of like for the next 2 months, coming up to the deadline, or month and a half, really. But there's definitely, you have to start playing Marwin a lot more at shortstop. You cannot. You're afforded the luxury of not having to force yourself into doing anything because you've been winning even with IKF as a shortstop. But like with Gallo in left field, where they've played him less and less and less, you can't keep throwing out IKF over Marwin every single day at shortstop and expect to win games, or not expect to win games and expect to get production out of shortstop. I can't say don't, and you won't expect to win games because these Yankee teams are really good with IKF at shortstop. In spite of him, sure, but I'm not going to take away the fact that they've played well even with him at shortstop. I'm not going to act like he can't be on a World Series winning team, but I'm going to say that he's definitely not the best shortstop on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, look, we spoke about today, Nick and I spoke about potential infielders that could come in here, and he tossed in the name John Birdie. Dude was really good this year. Like, if the Yankees are trying to pillage the Marlins, there's a good argument to make that John Birdie could come in here and play second base. You could shift over whoever it might be, IKF to third base, or whether Donaldson, they kind of just split reps and, Marwin plays shortstop. There's so many different variations of the infield that the Yankees could have put forth if they make a move. A Birdie could play shortstop, whatever it might be. So, right now, I mean, the team is fighting. They're winning games. They're having to come back. They're not winning them as handily as they were a couple weeks ago, but still, a win's a win. I don't care how you get there. A win is a freaking win. And this one was, interesting, but I will say offensively, the team really came to play. Stanton's looking like his old self. Hopefully he doesn't pick up any injuries or anything to kind of derail his flow here. So knock on wood for him. Judge single, RBI. He looks really good. Rizzo had a homer in the first inning to really get us off to the races there. But, the Yankees, something about them, man, after, like, we spoke about this yesterday, after the seventh inning, the Yankees are lethal, right? Like, they're insane after the seventh inning. It's something about them, like, it just turns on, like, okay, like, you know what? Let's stop fooling around. Let's actually put out our best bats, and let's get this thing cranking. And one thing I do have to say, though, is Joey Gallo, man, I can't justify him getting any more reps, man. He is an automatic out. I've never been less confident in a player doing anything offensive in my life. As the last thing I do want to discuss in this post-game recap, what happens with Joey Gallo as the trade deadline approaches?
I think there's a small market team where he is going to be more comfortable that is going to want him. Ultimately, this is a guy who was a 40 home run hitter before becoming a Yankee. Whether it's the pressure of New York, we've seen this with other guys, right? You know what? If it's the pressure of New York, you just kind of cut your losses. It's an unfortunate trade and situation. I wish the best for the guy. As long as you aren't a terrible person off the field, I wish the best for you, right? Like even Tyler Wade, I never really liked Tyler Wade, but I wish the best for him in Los Angeles. I hope he plays well. I hope guys have fruitful careers. But Gallo's it's just not working out here. I think you can agree with me 100% here, where it's not working out here. You have time. You had time in May to figure it out, but come July, you're not going to have time to figure it out because now it's let's make a trade. Let's get better. Gallo, probably, I think San Diego, a team like the Brewers, someone like that, where not necessarily doesn't have eyes on them, but, he's going to be a little more comfortable there. He's going to have a little more leeway. And you can get like a reliever back, right? Like the Yankees turned Gallo into a reliever. Yes, you're not getting the value, you're not getting the value you traded in Duran and Smith. But you are getting some value, and that's better than nothing. People were like, DFA him. No, the Yankees are not going to DFA him because they think that they can get something back from the deadline. And I think Jeff Passan said this. Teams are willing to give the Yankees something for Joey Gallo, right? Let's be real here. If the Yankees DFA him and throw away a chance to get a valuable reliever back, whether it's a solid pick, like a valuable reliever in my eyes is someone with good stuff and has decent MLB success because that gives them a high ceiling and the Yankees can turn them around. We saw this with Abreu tonight. They literally have had him for maybe a week. And he's 1,000 times better, it looks like. He's throwing only a sinker and slider, and he's getting a bunch of strikeouts, swing and misses, called strikes, whatever. But you're not going to throw away a chance to get value back for Gallo. So, no, the Yankees are not going to DFA him. They're not going to cut him so they can bring up Andujar, who's probably going to put up similar offensive numbers, but you can't trade anything for him, right? Go and just stash Gallo away on the bench for a while, play him every now and then. You put Hicks out there in left field. You DH Carpenter occasionally. You play Marwin occasionally. But you're not going to cut him. You're going to wait until someone gives you something of value. We saw this with the Rays last year. The Brewers gave the Rays J.P. Fireisen and I forget Drew Rasmussen for Willy Adames after Willy Adames having a terrible 2021. Granted, Adames has more control, younger player, so I'm not saying the Yankees are going to go out and get a top 20 reliever and a starting pitcher who's pitched very well to start the year. But can the Yankees get a solid reliever for him? Absolutely, right? I don't think people understand that, when Passan's saying he has value, when you just think of it from a common sense of this might just be a Sonny Gray type of situation, and the Yankees got a top 10 prospects in the Fred system in that deal that he just didn't work out over here, right? Like, you're just looking for some value, and the Yankees are going to figure out how to get some value. They'll get a left fielder, Benintendi, Pham, Ian Happ, whoever it may be. Doesn't matter to me as long as they're an above-average hitter and can hold their own in left field. That's all you really need. The Yankees have a lot of offensive firepower. They just need that marginal upgrade that gives them consistently good at-bats in late-game situations. And they'll be golden, man. I think we can both agree they're not really that much away in left field from just being unpitchable almost.
Yeah, so I have two things to say before we wrap this episode up. And, Albert Abreu, I spoke about him with Nick and why I think he's going to have a resurgent kind of situation with the Yankees. And mainly because I told him the number one thing is that he can't throw his changeup anymore. Batters are simply just teeing off on his changeup. And like you said, he's not throwing it right now. He's throwing his sinker and slider, and he's really, in the Matt Blake school of sinker throwers right now, and he's learning how to properly utilize that with his velocity. He's going to be a dangerous relief arm for us, man. Like, this is a guy who I think is super underrated. He's got the velocity. He's got decent stuff, and I think with Matt Blake teaching him how to get it done, there's value left to be extracted from him. We're seeing it firsthand. So that's a pretty solid thing to see. And then as for Joey Gallo, the thing about Joey Gallo is that his approach to the plate is not different. Yes, maybe he's slightly altering his batting stance. You've pointed that out on Twitter before. But I do think that, the main thing with Joey Gallo is he just can't handle the big lights of Yankee Stadium. I don't think he can handle being a Yankee. Like, it's not for everybody. Not everybody can handle that type of pressure, that type of intensity every single game. You can tell like it's just a little bit too much for him, in my opinion. I think he needs to go to a smaller market team where it's like he can be one of the better players in the roster. He can be himself. And he doesn't have to like be competing and trying to live up to the expectations of like Judge and Stanton and being this behemoth slugger, because I just think like mentally he's just not there. Like, he doesn't look confident in his approach ever. And I think that's kind of impacting his production up to this point, guys. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. The Yankee win, this awesome comeback as always, my friends. Really thankful for you guys tuning in to Fireside Yankees for the post-game recap. I'll catch you guys on the next episode.